Hello, my name is Pamela. I want to share with you my COVID-19 testimony and the goodness of God. In March of 2020, as the majority of people know now, we were hit with this virus, this coronavirus, COVID-19, and the beginning of a pandemic, a worldwide pandemic. China had previously had it. I was aware of something going on in China because I taught school. I taught at a private school, and we had international students. And I also taught part-time online, teaching Chinese kids English. And that's where I heard more about it. So they were all telling me about being on lockdown and having to do school remotely. But again, it was in China. But then we started hearing more news, and our kids at this private school were told to go home by their countries, by their agencies. You have to go home, otherwise you won't be able to get back into the country. So that was a little startling. But again, it was there, not here, until March. So in March, on the 16th, I believe it was, Governor Cuomo from New York State signed an executive order closing schools. It was to be effective March 18th. So the previous Friday, we met as a school and closed. And we were going to meet the following Monday and Tuesday to discuss how we were going to teach remotely. And we all thought, oh, it's probably going to last a couple weeks, and then we'll all come back to school. No big deal. So that Saturday, I think it was the 14th, my daughter and I were in the habit of going out shopping, going to lunch, and we did our regular thing. Showed up Monday. She taught at the same school. Monday and Tuesday, had our meetings. Everything's fine. And then Wednesday, I wake up and I'm having a cough. I have a cough and I'm not feeling well. Like, oh, that's odd. Didn't think anything of it. So I told my husband, I'm not feeling that well. And I was get a little cough. And we were talking about on the 15th, we'd all gotten together for my husband and I. We had birthdays in March and got together to celebrate. And my son was coughing and didn't feel well. So I said, maybe I just picked something up. No big deal. So that's Wednesday. Friday, I'm not feeling better at all. And so I called my doctor. And the doctor asked, do you have a fever? It's like, nope, don't have a fever. Okay, well, it's probably the flu. Just monitor yourself at home. We don't want anybody coming into the offices because we're not sure what's going on with this virus. So he's okay. So I didn't go in, but I don't get better at all. I'm getting progressively worse, but I didn't have a fever. So I didn't call the doctor back. I'm getting worse. I'm coughing more. I'm really achy, and I'm really tired, very tired. But like I said, no fever. Until Friday the 27th. I registered my first fever. It was like 100 degrees, 0.1. So it was really not that big of a deal. And I thought, well, should I call? Should I not? I said, I'll wait. But Saturday, the 28th of March, I woke up and I'm in bad shape. I'm incredibly achy. I'm incredibly weak. My fingernails are blue. My lips are blue. And I thought, I really need to call my doctor this time. So I called urgent care because it was Saturday. Urgent care, I said, will you see me if I come in? And they said, yeah, we'll see you. So we go to urgent care, but they wouldn't see me. So they said, instead, go to the testing tent for the COVID-19. It was on the same ground, so we drove over to the testing tent. The lady who's going to give me the test looks at me and says, oh, I know you have it. She said, your fingernails are blue, your lips are blue, you can't breathe. She took my oxygen level. She said, it's critical, and then gave me the test and said, go to emergency. So we went over to emergency. They put me in a wheelchair, told my husband, you have to leave, you can't stay. Take me into the hospital, and my last memory, until 14 days later, is being wheeled down this hall. My husband says that the next day, Sunday morning, they called him and said, we can't regulate her oxygen levels. We're going to put her on a ventilator. So it was so early in the process, they didn't give me any medicine except anesthesia. They said I had a resistant intubation, and they, of course, gave me a paralytic in order to be able to do this. So I was in a coma from that day. I was on the ventilator for 11 days. They kept telling my husband, he would call daily, she's critical, but she's stable. So then they decided on the 11th day they're going to take this ventilator out. And everybody assumed I'd wake up, but I didn't. So they took the ventilator out, but I didn't wake up. And all this time, of course, my whole family's been praying. And my son, is putting it out on social media. My daughter's giving updates on social media and to the school where we both taught. I had a colleague, Rebecca, who was rallying, the families and the students to pray. And one day she said, let's have a fast and pray for Pamela. And so everybody, it's going all over the place. And I kid you not, I mean, my students that had been sent home to China were praying for me. And it's so critical to understand that the power of prayer for that. But so I'm not waking up, and the doctor is saying I have no reflexes and I have no eye movement. And within the hospital, we found out later they were giving a very dire report. But to my husband, they just kept saying, well, she's critical but stable. And within the hospital staff, as I mentioned, there were some who were praying. We had a friend who actually is a physician assistant, and she would check on me regularly to give reports. But I want to say I had no reflexes and no eye movement because my spirit was not in my body. It's a powerful story of those praying and what my husband was praying. He kept praying for mercy and grace. But I'm going to talk about that at a later point, not today. I want to tell you what happened with me. So I was not here on the earth. My spirit was with Jesus. My spirit was in heaven with Jesus. I was walking and talking with Jesus. And I'm going to share my memories of that with you so that you would know how good God is. My most vivid memory is Jesus and I are walking in heaven. And we round this corner, and there's this huge door. And in front of the door, there's a bench. And I say to Jesus, where are we? It can't be purgatory. And I'm waiting because here you are and here I am. I believe in you. And he said, no, this is a court. And when he said this is a court, I started to cry. He said, I don't have anything to present to a court. I can't go into a court. And he said, I'm your advocate. Plead my blood. He says, well, I plead your blood. I believe in you. I plead your blood. And then he said to me, do you have aught against anyone? And when he said that, immediately two faces flashed in my mind. And I started to cry again. And I'll tell you, on earth, I would have said I had forgiven these people. I know about forgiveness. I have had to forgive. And I would have said I had forgiven them. But the word ought, as I found out later, has a lot more meaning to it than just simply unforgiveness. But I didn't know it at the time, and I'm crying. And I don't know how long it took, and he says to me, Jesus says, are you willing to forgive and give them a clean slate? And I said yes. And when I said yes, the door to the court opened. And he looked at me again and said, I'm your advocate. Plead my blood. So we go into the court, and I'm just looking at Jesus. I don't want to look around. It's vast. And for some reason, I knew the judge was to my right, and I knew it was God. So I am just focusing on Jesus. So we go in, and God and Jesus begin to talk. And every once in a while, Jesus would say to me, plead my blood. And I would say, I plead the blood of Jesus. That's such an important part to this story that I'm not going to get into today. I'll at another video, I'll explain what I learned about the power of the blood of Jesus, much more than I had known at that point. But so anyway, they're talking, and occasionally I did that. And then all of a sudden it got very, very still in the courtroom. It was very quiet and the air was very still. God said something to Jesus. And Jesus turned to me and said, "Do you want to go back?" And immediately I said, "Yes, it's too early. What will my kids think? What will Lewis think?" And my next memory is I'm waking up in this room and I don't know where I am. And I'm looking up at the ceiling and like, whose ceiling is that? Where am I? And of course I was in ICU. And then, I wake up, nurses come in, and that's another story for another time too. But the point of this today is how good God is. He's not angry. Jesus didn't say to me, "Come on, Pamela, you know about forgiveness. You still have unforgiveness in your heart." He didn't say that. He asked me the question to get my response and to give me an opportunity to forgive in a deeper way. He is good. He was not angry with me. He did not accuse me of anything. He was just so kind and so good. And it was God the Father's idea. God the Father, who some people think is so angry and he's a mean judge. No, he's not. He just wants us to know his Son in a deeper way than we do. That's my testimony. That's my experience. It is a real experience. I was not hallucinating. I was so sick, and yet he allowed me to have this encounter in heaven and send me back. And I would just quickly tell you why my body was so sick. The report that I got when I left the hospital said I had 2 types of pneumonia, one from COVID. I had what's called cysts, where every organ in my body was inflamed. I had a blood clot. I mean, I was in bad, bad shape. And yet God, in his mercy, did not allow me to die, but allowed me to come back. And I am so forever thankful. And I want people to know how real Jesus is. If you've doubted, believe me, he is real. Heaven is real. I really hope that you take the time to consider that and to pray and to believe in who he is and what he did for us. And I will share much more in another time. I'll share what I learned from this whole experience. And thank you for watching.